The shuttle dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a soft hum. Hana pressed her face against the small window and looked at the station floating in the darkness of space. Orbital Station 4 was massive. It looked like a metal flower with 6 long arms reaching out from a central hub. Thousands of lights blinked across its surface. Ships of all sizes moved around it like insects around a lamp. Hana was 23 years old. She had black hair cut short above her shoulders and dark eyes that noticed everything. She was small, even by human standards. The other passengers on the shuttle barely looked at her. To them, she was just another human student going to the academy. 12 years ago, humanity had joined the Galactic Concord. It was a union of over 200 species who had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Humans were the members. They were also the weakest, at least in the eyes of most aliens. Humans had no natural armor. They had no claws or fangs. They could not breathe underwater or survive in vacuum. They were soft, slow, and fragile. The Concord had rules. One rule said that young members of all species must attend mixed academies to learn about each other. They would study diplomacy, galactic law, and combat protocols. This was meant to build trust and understanding between species. Hana did not care about trust or understanding. She had her own reasons for coming here. The shuttle docked with a loud clang. Hana picked up her small bag and walked toward the exit. Other students pushed past her. A with 4 arms bumped her shoulder without apologizing. A pair of their blue skin shimmering under the lights whispered to each other and laughed when they looked at her. Hana said nothing. She kept walking. The registration hall was a large circular room with high ceilings. Hundreds of students waited in lines. Hana found the line for humans and joined it. There were only 32 humans in this term's class. She counted them. Most looked nervous. Some looked excited. A few looked like they wanted to go home. A young man stood in front of her. He turned around and smiled. "First time on a station?" he asked. Hana nodded. "I'm Ho," he said. "I'm from you." Hana Seoul. "Nice to meet you." Ho looked around the hall with wide eyes. "Can you believe this place? I never thought I would see so many aliens in one room. My grandmother still thinks they are going to eat us." Hana almost smiled. "They might." Ho laughed. He was young, maybe 19 or 20. He had a soft face and kind eyes. He reminded Hana of her younger brother. The line moved slowly. When Hana reached the front, a machine scanned her face and her documents. A mechanical voice told her she was assigned to Dormitory Block 7, Room 412. Her classes would begin tomorrow. She found her room without trouble. It was small but clean. 2 beds, 2 desks, 1 window looking out at the stars. A young woman was already there, unpacking her things onto one of the beds. "Oh, hello," the woman said. She stood up and bowed slightly. I guess we are roommates." Hana was taller than Hana, with long hair tied back in a ponytail. She smiled easily and talked quickly. Within 10 minutes, Hana knew that her father worked in galactic trade and that she had always dreamed of working in alien diplomacy. "What about you?" asked. "Why did you come here?" Hana put her bag on the empty bed. "To learn." Waited for more, but Hana said nothing else. After a moment, shrugged and went back to unpacking. That night Hana lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling. The station hummed around her. She could feel the vibration of engines deep in the walls. Somewhere far away, she heard aliens laughing. She thought about home. She thought about the years she had spent in the Special Response Unit. She thought about the things she had done and the things that had been done to her. She thought about the reason she was really here. Then she closed her eyes and slept without dreams. The next morning, all new students gathered in the main assembly hall. Stood on the stage at the front. He was over 2 meters tall with dark green scales covering his body. His eyes were yellow with black slits. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. I am combat master, he said. I have trained warriors for 300 years. I have fought in 12 wars. I have killed more enemies than you have met people in your short lives. He paused and looked across the room. His eyes stopped on the group of human students. The Conquered says I must teach all species equally. I will follow this rule, but I will not pretend that all species are equal. Some of you were born to fight, some of you were born to serve, and some of you, he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth, some of you were born to be prey. The students laughed. The students looked uncomfortable. The human students said nothing. Continued speaking about the training schedule, the rules, and the expectations. Hana listened carefully. She watched how he moved, how he held himself where his weight rested. She noticed the slight stiffness in his left leg, an old injury perhaps. She noticed how his eyes narrowed when he looked at humans, not just dislike, something deeper, fear hiding behind anger. Interesting. After the assembly, Hana walked toward their first class. That is terrifying, whispered. Did you see how he looked at us, like we were food? He is afraid, Hana said. Stared at her, afraid of what? I don't know yet. They entered the classroom and found seats near the back. Ho waved at them and came to sit nearby. Other human students gathered together, forming a small island in a sea of aliens. Hana pulled out her tablet and prepared for the lesson, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about his hatred and his fear. She was thinking about the months ahead. Patience, she told herself. Patience was a weapon too. And Hana had learned long ago how to wait. 3 weeks passed on Orbital Station 4. Hana learned the rhythm of academy life. Wake up early, attend classes, eat in the large dining hall where species sat in separate groups, train in the combat rooms, sleep, repeat. The academic classes were not difficult. Galactic history, alien biology, diplomatic protocols. Hana studied quietly and answered questions when asked. Her instructors found her unremarkable, just another human student trying to keep up with older civilizations. But combat training was different. Ran his classes like a military camp. Students arrived before sunrise. They trained until their bodies screamed for rest. Then they trained more. The instructor believed that pain was the best teacher. He also believed that some species deserved more pain than others. Every day found ways to humiliate the human students. He paired them against larger opponents in sparring matches. He criticized their every movement. When they fell, he did not let them rest. When they succeeded, he found something wrong with their technique. Humans are slow, he would say. Humans are weak. The only reason you survived on your planet is because nothing stronger lived there. The other species watched these lessons. Some felt uncomfortable, most felt nothing. A few enjoyed it. One morning, called a human student named One to the center of the training ring. One was a young man with thin arms and nervous eyes. He had never been in a real fight before coming to the academy. Today we practice defense against multiple attackers, announced. 3 students will attack, the human will defend. One's face went pale. 3, they were twice his size and covered in natural armor. This was not training, this was punishment. The match lasted less than 1 minute. One tried to dodge, tried to block, tried to do everything he had been taught, but the moved like water around stone. They struck him from all sides. When he finally fell, his nose was broken and 2 of his ribs were cracked. Looked down at him without expression. This is what happens when prey forgets its place. Take him to medical. Hana watched from the edge of the ring. Her face showed nothing, but inside she was counting injuries, counting insults, counting every moment of cruelty. That night, sat on her bed with her head in her hands. I don't understand, she said. Why does he hate us so much? We haven't done anything to him. Hana was doing stretches on the floor. She did this every night. Flexibility was important. Hatred rarely needs a reason, she said. Sometimes it just needs a target. But this is supposed to be a place of learning. The Conquered has rules about treating all species fairly. Rules are just words. People follow them when it suits them. They ignore them when it doesn't. Looked at Hana with frustration. Doesn't it bother you? Don't you feel angry? Hana stood up and walked to the window. The stars were bright against the black void. Anger is a resource, she said quietly. You don't spend it until you need it. Did not understand, but she was too tired to argue. The weeks continued. More injuries, more humiliation. A human girl named So sprained her ankle during a training exercise, made her continue anyway. A human boy named Min was knocked unconscious by a punch, said he should have blocked better. Hana observed everything. She noticed which students were cruel and which were just following orders. She noticed which alien species looked away during the abuse and which ones smiled. She memorized names and faces and behaviors. She also noticed was a young, probably only 50 years old by their long-lived standards. He was large even for his species, with dark red scales and small, cruel eyes. He took special pleasure in hurting human students. When looked away, would hit harder than necessary. When matches were over, would whisper insults that only his opponents could hear. One afternoon pushed Ho during a practice session. It was not part of any exercise. Ho was simply walking past and shoved him to the ground. Ho's arm bent at a wrong angle when he landed. The crack was loud enough for everyone to hear. Ho screamed, looked over and laughed. Humans break so easily, the instructor said, like dried sticks. Hana helped Ho to the medical bay. She held his good hand while the doctors set his bone. His face was wet with tears, but he tried not to cry out loud. Why? Ho asked through his pain. Why do they hate us? Hana squeezed his hand gently. Rest now, don't think about it. She stayed until he fell asleep from the medication. Then she left the medical bay and walked slowly through the station's corridors. That night, she did not return to her room. The security footage from Corridor 7B would later show a small human female walking toward the dormitory section at 200 hours. But the cameras in the dormitory itself had a strange malfunction. They recorded nothing but static for exactly 17 minutes. No one saw what happened in his room. The next morning did not come to training. When he finally appeared 3 days later, he was limping badly. His left arm was in a sling. There were strange marks on his neck that his scales could not fully hide. Other students asked him what happened, said nothing. He refused to speak about it. When someone pressed him for details, he flinched like a frightened animal. He never touched a human student again. Noticed the change in his student but did not investigate. Perhaps he did not care. Perhaps he suspected the truth and preferred not to confirm it. Hana attended classes as usual. She trained as usual. She ate her meals and spoke politely to her classmates and studied her lessons. No one suspected her. Why would they? She was just a small human woman, quiet, unremarkable, harmless. Noticed that Hana seemed slightly different after that night. There was something in her eyes, a small light that had not been there before. Did something happen? Asked. Hana smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible. Nothing important, she said. Just a lesson I needed to teach. Did not ask again. 2 months into the term, announced a special demonstration. Hana heard about it during breakfast. The dining hall buzzed with conversation. Students from all species talked about what the combat master had planned. Some said it would be a display of advanced fighting techniques. Others said wanted to make an example of someone. Set her tray down across from Hana. Her face was worried. Did you hear? Is calling for volunteers from the human group. He wants to demonstrate something in front of the whole school. Hana continued eating her rice. I heard. No one should volunteer. It's obviously a trap. He just wants to hurt someone while everyone watches. Perhaps. Ho joined them, his arm still wrapped in a healing cast. He had been quiet since his injury. The light in his eyes had dimmed. "I hope he doesn't pick me," Ho said. "I can't fight with this arm." Hana looked at him. "He won't pick you. Your injury would make him look like a coward. He wants someone healthy, someone who can stand and take the punishment." Shuddered, "That's horrible. Why does the Academy allow this?" "Because they have power. Humans do not. That is how the galaxy works." They finished their meal in silence. The demonstration was scheduled for the afternoon. All students were required to attend. The main training hall was the largest space on the station, with high ceilings and walls covered in observation windows. Usually, it held maybe 50 students during regular training. Today, over 200 filled the seats around the central ring. Hana sat with the other human students near the back. She counted the faces in the crowd, and a dozen other species she did not know, all watching, all waiting. Walked into the ring. He wore his formal training uniform, black and gold with symbols marking his rank and achievements. His yellow eyes swept across the crowd. "Today, I will demonstrate proper combat technique," he announced. His voice echoed off the walls. "I will show you the difference between a true warrior and a pretender." He paused. His eyes found the section where humans sat. "I need a volunteer from the human students." No one moved. The human students looked at the floor, at the ceiling, at anything except. "No volunteers," smiled. "Then I will choose." His eyes moved slowly across the human faces. Hana felt his gaze pass over her. For a moment, she thought he would choose someone else. Then his eyes came back to her and stopped. "You," he said, pointing at her. "The small one, come forward." Grabbed Hana's arm. "Don't go, say you're sick, say anything." Hana gently removed his hand. "It's fine." She stood up and walked toward the ring. 200 pairs of eyes followed her. She heard whispers in languages she did not understand. She felt the weight of their attention like pressure against her skin. Hana stepped into the ring and faced. Standing close to him, she barely reached his chest. His shadow fell over her like a dark cloud. "What is your name, human?" asked. "Hana." "Hana," he said her name like it was a joke. "Do you know why I chose you?" "No." "Because you think you are clever. I have watched you. You observe, you calculate, you think your small brain is working harder than everyone else." He leaned closer. "But you are wrong. You are just meat that learned to walk. Today, everyone will see that." Hana said nothing. Her face showed nothing. "The rules are simple," announced to the crowd. "We will spar until one of us yields or cannot continue. No weapons, no outside help." He looked down at Hana. "Do you understand, human?" "I understand." "Good, bow to your superior." Hana bowed. It was a proper human bow, respectful and measured. In her culture, it was a sign of honor. Too, it was submission. "You honor me with your submission," he said loudly. The students laughed. Hana straightened. Her eyes met his. Something flickered there just for a moment. Then it was gone. The match began. Moved first. He was fast for his size. His clawed hand swept toward Hana's head. She ducked and stepped sideways. The claws cut through empty air. He struck again, and again. Each time Hana moved just enough to avoid the blow. She did not counterattack, she did not try to hurt him, she only evaded. The crowd watched in silence. This was not what they expected. The small human should have been on the ground by now. Instead, she was still standing, still moving, still watching her opponent with those dark, calm eyes. Grew frustrated. His strikes became faster, harder, less controlled. Hana continued to evade, a step here, a turn there, always just out of reach. "Stand still and fight," shouted. Hana did not respond. Finally changed tactics. Instead of striking, he grabbed. His massive hand caught Hana's right wrist. His grip was like iron, she could not pull free. Hana looked at her trapped wrist. She looked its face. She saw what was coming before he did it. Twisted, he did not twist to control her. He twisted to break her. The bones in Hana's wrist snapped with a sound like dry wood. The crack echoed through the silent hall. Some students gasped, others turned away. The human students sat frozen, their faces pale with shock. Held her broken wrist high so everyone could see. "This," he announced, "is what happens to soft shells who forget their place. This is what happens when prey thinks it can fight back." Hana did not scream. She did not cry. She did not beg him to stop. She looked at her shattered wrist. She looked at the bone pressing against her skin from the inside. She felt the pain, bright and hot, flooding through her arm. Then she looked up and she smiled. It was a small smile, quiet, almost gentle, but there was something in that smile that made its own smile fade, something cold, something ancient, something that did not belong on the face of prey. "You should not have done that," Hana said softly. Her voice was calm, peaceful, like the surface of deep water before a storm. His yellow eyes widened. For the first time since the match began, he felt something he had not felt in 200 years. Fear. The training hall was completely silent. 200 students held their breath. They watched the small human woman with the broken wrist. They watched the massive combat master still holding her arm. They waited for what would happen next. Later, scholars and military experts from 12 star systems would study the footage of what happened in those next 3 seconds. They would slow it down. They would analyze every movement. They would write papers and give lectures and debate the meaning of what they saw. But in that moment there was no analysis. There was only action. Hana moved. Her free hand, her left hand, shot forward like a striking snake. It hit its elbow joint, not the arm itself. The joint. The one place where scales did not fully protect the flesh beneath. It was a precise strike. Surgical. The kind of strike that required years of training and perfect knowledge of anatomy. The kind of strike that a normal human student could not possibly know. His grip released. His arm went numb. Before his brain could process what had happened, Hana was already moving again. She stepped inside his guard. This was the last place any fighter wanted to be against her. They were strongest at close range. Their claws, their teeth, their massive arms could crush enemies who came too close. But Hana did not fight like a normal opponent. Her left hand found his throat, not the front of the throat where thick scales protected vital structures, the side. There was a nerve cluster there, hidden beneath a small gap in the natural armor. Few people knew about it. Even fewer knew exactly where it was. Hana knew. She pressed hard. The nerve cluster screamed. His vocal cords paralyzed instantly. He opened his mouth to call for help, to scream, to make any sound at all. Nothing came out, just silence. His eyes went wide with terror. Hana was already moving to her third strike. She swept her leg against his knee. Legs bent backward, not forward like human legs. This was usually an advantage. It made them stable, hard to knock down. But it was also a weakness. If you pushed the knee in the wrong direction, it hyperextended. The joint gave out. Vel. He was a combat master with 300 years of experience. He had fought in 12 wars. He had killed enemies beyond counting. And now he was falling, unable to speak, unable to stop what was happening. Hana caught his head as he dropped. Her fingers found the gap between his skull plates. Every had this gap. It was where the skull bones met, where they were not fully fused. It was a secret weakness that they did not discuss with outsiders. They believed no other species knew about it. They were wrong. Hana twisted. The crack of neck breaking was the loudest sound in the hall. It echoed off the walls. It bounced off the ceiling. It filled every ear and every mind. Then there was silence. His body hit the floor. His yellow eyes stared at nothing. His mouth was still open in a silent scream that would never come. Hana stood over him. Her broken wrist hung at her side, swelling and purple. Her breathing was steady. Her face was calm. There was no rage in her eyes, no hatred, no satisfaction. Just emptiness. She looked up at the crowd. 200 faces stared back at her, faces frozen in shock, faces pale with disbelief, faces showing something that might have been fear or respect or both. And human faces. 32 human faces watching one of their own stand over the body of their tormentor. Hana spoke. Her voice was clear and carried easily through the silent hall. Class dismissed. I believe we have a break. No one moved. Hana stepped over his body and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted before her like water around a stone. No one touched her. No one spoke to her. They just watched. Was crying. Ho was staring with his mouth open. The other human students sat in stunned silence. Hana reached the door. She paused and looked back at the hall, at the body, at the hundreds of witnesses. Someone should call security, she said, and medical, though I suspect medical will not be needed. Then she walked out. The hall exploded into noise, screaming, shouting, the sound of dozens of species all talking at once in their own languages. Students rushed toward their fallen master. Students backed away toward the exits. Chaos spread like fire through dry grass. Hana walked calmly through the corridors. Alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed on the walls. Station security officers ran past her without stopping. They did not know yet. They did not know what she had done. She reached the medical bay and walked inside. A doctor looked up from his work. I need treatment for a broken wrist, Hana said, holding up her damaged arm. The doctor stared at her. What happened? Training accident. Before he could ask more questions, his communication device began beeping. He answered it and listened. His face changed color. He looked at Hana with new eyes. Sit down, he said quietly. Security will want to speak with you. I know. Hana sat on a medical bed and let the doctor examine her wrist. He worked in silence, his hands trembling slightly. She watched him without expression. You killed him, the doctor finally said. Yes. A combat master, with your bare hands. He broke my wrist first. The doctor had no response to that. Security arrived 10 minutes later. 4 officers, 2 and 2. They carried weapons. They looked at Hana like she might attack at any moment. You will come with us, the lead said. His voice shook with barely controlled anger. Hana stood up. Her wrist was now wrapped in a temporary cast. The pain was still there, a hot pulse running up her arm, but pain was just information. She had learned long ago to file that information away and ignore it. Of course, she said politely, lead the way. As they escorted her out of the medical bay, she passed a window overlooking the training hall. Through the glass, she could see the crowd still gathered around's body. 300 years of fighting, 12 wars, countless kills. Ended in 3 seconds by a small human woman with a broken wrist. Hana smiled again, that same small, quiet smile. Perhaps now they would understand. The holding cell was small and cold. Metal walls, metal floor, a single hard bench to sit on, a light that never turned off. Hana had been in worse places. She sat with her back against the wall and waited. Her wrist throbbed inside its cast. The doctors had done what they could, but proper healing would take weeks. She did not mind. Pain reminded her that she was alive. Outside her cell she could hear shouting, voices deep and angry, human voices high and worried, the sounds of a station in chaos. Hours passed, then the door opened. A human man in a formal suit walked in. He was middle-aged, with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind him stood 2 guards who looked nervous. I am Ambassador Park, the man said. I represent the Korean Peninsula Federation. I am here to help you. Thank you, Ambassador. Park sat down on the bench across from her. He studied her face for a long moment. Do you understand what you have done? He asked. I killed a combat master in self-defense. They do not see it that way. They are calling for your execution. They say you murdered their instructor in cold blood." Hana's expression did not change. "He broke my wrist in front of 200 witnesses. He did it to humiliate me, to prove that humans are weak," I responded. "By killing him." "Yes." Park rubbed his face with his hands. He looked exhausted. "There will be a tribunal," he said. "Representatives from 7 species will judge your case. They want blood. The other species are waiting to see what happens. Humanity's position in the conquered could be affected by the outcome." "I understand." "Do you?" Park leaned forward. "You are not just a student, Hana. I read your file, the real one, Special Response Unit, classified operations, things that officially never happened." He paused. "You knew exactly what you were doing when you walked into that ring." Hana met his eyes. "He was hurting us every day, breaking bones, breaking spirits. The Academy did nothing. The Conquered did nothing. Someone had to do something." "So you appointed yourself judge and executioner." "I appointed myself defender, chose to be the aggressor. He chose to break my wrist in front of witnesses. All I did was show him the consequences of that choice." Park was silent for a long time. Finally, he stood up. "The tribunal meets tomorrow. I will do what I can, but I cannot promise anything." "I know." After he left, Hana lay down on the bench and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would come soon enough. The tribunal was held in the station's council chamber, a circular room with seats arranged in rising levels around a central floor. 7 judges sat at a high table, one from each major species in the conquered. Behind them, hundreds of spectators filled every available space. Hana stood alone in the center of the room. She wore simple clothes. Her broken wrist was still in its cast. She looked small against the massive architecture around her. The charges were read: murder of an instructor, disruption of conquered peace, conduct unbecoming of an integration student. Hana listened without expression. When the charges were finished, the judge spoke first. His voice was full of barely controlled rage. "This human killed one of our greatest warriors. She must pay with her life. There can be no other outcome." The judge raised one of his 4 hands. "Perhaps we should hear the evidence before deciding punishment." Hana stepped forward. "May I speak?" The judges looked at each other. Finally, the judge nodded. "You may." Hana began presenting her defense. She called up medical records from the station's database. Dozens of entries, human students with broken bones, sprains, concussions, internal injuries, all from training accidents under supervision. In 2 months, over 40% of human students received significant injuries during combat training, Hana said. The injury rate for other species was less than 5%. Murmurs spread through the crowd. She called witnesses. Ho came forward and showed his arm, still healing from when had pushed him. One described the match where 3 attacked him at once. So talked about being forced to train on a sprained ankle. One by one, the human students told their stories. The chamber grew quieter with each testimony. Finally, Hana presented the footage of her own match. The crowd watched grab her wrist. They watched him twist. They heard the crack of bone breaking. They saw the smile on his face as he held up her shattered arm. "He broke my wrist to make a point," Hana said, her voice clear and steady. "I broke his neck to make a different one." The judge slammed his fist on the table. "Self-defense does not permit lethal force. You could have yielded. You could have retreated." "Retreated where?" Hana asked. "He was holding my wrist. And Conquered Statute 714-2 states that lethal response is permitted when retreat is impossible and grievous bodily harm has been inflicted." The judges looked at each other again. The judge pulled up the statute on her screen and read it carefully. "She is correct," they said quietly. "The law supports her claim." The tribunal debated for 6 hours. They argued for execution. The other species argued for lesser punishments or no punishment at all. The chamber buzzed with tension. Finally, the judge stood up. "We have reached a decision," he announced. "By a vote of 5-2, the defendant is cleared of all charges. Her actions fall within the bounds of justifiable defense under Concord law." The chamber erupted, screamed in outrage. Human students cheered. Other species watched in stunned silence. Hannah bowed to the judges. "Thank you for your fairness." She walked out of the chamber without looking back. 3 months later, Hannah returned to Earth. She never spoke publicly about what happened on Orbital Station 4. She refused all interviews. She disappeared back into the quiet life she had come from. But the galaxy did not forget. In every academy across conquered space, instructors began treating human students differently, not with kindness exactly, but with caution, with respect, with the understanding that these small, soft creatures were not as helpless as they appeared. A diplomat approached Hannah before she left the station. He was tall, with silver-blue skin and 4 arms folded respectfully. "We wondered," he said, "why the feared humans so much when you seemed so fragile. Now we understand. You are not fragile. You are patient." Hannah smiled at him. It was a genuine smile this time, warm, almost kind. "Patience is our greatest weapon," she said. "We learned it from hunting. Our ancestors would chase prey for days, never stopping, never giving up. The prey was always faster, always stronger, but we were always more patient." She looked out the window at the stars. "Eventually, everything runs out of strength, and we are still there, waiting." The diplomat nodded slowly. He understood now. In the halls of Orbital Station 4, a new saying began to spread. Students whispered it to each other. Instructors mentioned it in hushed voices. It crossed species boundaries and language barriers. "Do not mistake human silence for human weakness. Because when humans finally move, empires fall." And Hannah walked among the stars, small and quiet and patient, carrying the lesson she had taught the galaxy written in the memory of a broken wrist and a snapped neck. Some prey, the galaxy learned, bites back.